Welcome to the Miniatures Paintbrush. Today we're going to talk about painting this Reaper Miniatures Dust King that I converted. Welcome again. Welcome back. And if you're new here, just welcome at all into this insanity I call a paint and chat. This time, what I decided to do is take some Lichen Purple and take some Glaze Medium and start glazing over a Zenithal highlighted Reaper Bones miniature called the Dust King. And I decided to do this because I wanted to try this new style that I heard about called sketch style painting, which is pretty amazing because it's a quick and simple way in order to paint up a miniature to a pretty decent quality. It's always fun that if you're not painting for a competition or something like that, but still want an impressive paint job, that you can easily and quickly be able to paint up a miniature. And when I say quickly, that's a bit relative because, well, usually for me, it takes me about a month to finish one miniature. Now, I am admittedly a slow painter, so that would mean that I paint at a very slow pace. Not only that, I'm pretty active. I'm pretty active as a person and in my community and in my family, which always take priority. And I only have about an hour or two here and there, and possibly I can dedicate an evening or two on the weekend to be able to hobby and craft and create things. So that really bites into my time when it comes to painting miniatures and getting things accomplished and possibly even competing in shows. It would take an exorbitant amount of time to be able to do that. So sometimes you want to paint things that are not for competition, but maybe for the tabletop and for gaming. So sketch style painting was something I really wanted to take a look at because here I can quickly paint something up for the tabletop to a standard in which I'm happy with and is pretty striking, and at the same time, not invest that much time to be able to do it. It seems like the best of both worlds, especially if you are a gamer who games with miniatures and you're not going for that competition piece model, yet you do want a striking piece that's a conversational piece on the table. Well, why don't you try sketch style painting? Now, I'm not sure, honestly, if this is completely sketch style painting by the book, sketch style painting, but definitely this is what I've been told sketch style painting is, so I wanted to try it. And what that is that you want to take colors, like I'm doing here, and I'm going back and forth with colors, and you're going to thin those down to a very glazed consistency, or a wash style consistency. And what you're going to do is have your miniature zenithal highlighted. And if you don't know what that means, that simply means that you have one dark color as your base color. And then you determine where your light source is going to be. At which point, you will take a lighter color and spray it from the light source area. Now, if you really want to get fancy about it, what you can do is have a three-color zenithal highlighted scheme, which is you start off with a very dark color. I usually go for black. It seems to be the color choice for me because you can't get darker than black. So I start with the black color personally, and then what I would do is have like a gray tone or a mid-tone for a 45-degree angle spread. What that means is you are spraying, now either through rattle can or through an airbrush, your mid-tone or middle color at a 45-degree angle from the miniature, and I'll go around the miniature. This is based on the light source being coming from the top of the miniature, like you see here. So gray at a 45-degree angle, and then finally the highest highlighted color, white, straight up above it, which is a 90-degree perpendicular kind of, well, more 90-degree angle from the miniature. What this causes is a gradient. What you have is shadows underneath, and then you have a gray kind of middle color where the light is starting to hit, and then finally the highlights or the hot spots will be directly above. Now, you don't have to go from it directly above. You can choose where your light source is coming. Hit at a 45-degree angle from your direct light source, and then at the light source hit it from white, thus leaving everything else a dark or black color. Now, that's what I did with this miniature after I converted this miniature, and I converted this miniature in this video, which I should put a link up above right here. Yeah. Yep, this is a Reaper Bones figure, which it had bendy swords, and I kind of wanted to remove the bendy swords, so I put hard swords instead of bendy swords, and voila! The problem was solved, and I think it looks pretty cool. So if you want this miniature specifically, you can watch that video and see where I got the parts from to be able to convert that and to do it effectively, which I think is effectively. So what I am doing here is I believe I'm taking lichen purple, and I was taking a very dark blue and kind of mixing it together just a little bit, layering different colors in when it comes to putting glazes on here. And glaze is just very, very thin down paint. And why would you want thin down paint? Well, you want thin down paint because you do want all those gradients that you put in with your zenithal highlighting to shine through. Therefore, the shadows are still deep and dark in the shadows. And the highlights are very vibrant. And it's all because of the undercoat that you put on there that's actually making the colors pop. Now, this process is, well, a little different for me. This is basically slopping on paint and just pushing paint around on the miniature. Now, pushing paint around on the miniature is something I was never comfortable with, so definitely this is out of my comfort zone. And if you're painting miniatures for a while and you have your kind of groove that you kind of get into, you have your comfort zone where you just paint one thing all the time, one style all the time. You know what works and you stick to what works. Now, what doesn't work about that is that you can become very, very stagnant as a painter. Sure, you reach a level of painting, but you will definitely plateau there. You will stay at that level. And if that's the level you're comfortable with, then good on you. You do that. But if that's not the level you're comfortable with, and you kind of want to just get better as a painter throughout time, you're like, okay, so I can do this miniature to this style, but what else can I do? Well, if you're ever curious about what you can do and how you can push yourself, you need to think outside of the proverbial box. What that means is do something you're not comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with pushing paint on top of a miniature. So of course I had to jump onto this miniature and start pushing paint on the miniature itself and mixing on the miniature itself. Sort of wet blending, as you will. And yeah, I'm really not comfortable with wet blending, but I'm starting to get comfortable now because I can see it's not really that hard. It's what's the biggest thing that's stopping me from becoming a better painter is me and my fear of messing up something. Now, here is where Reaper Bones is trump and king, in my opinion. Here is a miniature that doesn't cost a lot. In fact, I got it bulk when I did the Kickstarter. I got it bulk, and I paid a very, very small amount for all the miniatures that I've gotten, which means it being a cheaper model that I'm not afraid of ruining it. Now, I do have some models. Nagash comes to mind, and Night Titan, a Warden from 40K, come to mind. that I really don't want to make a mistake on those. I'm almost afraid to paint. Well, no, I'm definitely afraid to paint those things right now because I want to get so good that when I go and approach this, when I approach the big models, I can add every single technique that I've ever learned in painting and pour it into this huge model that you can see all the details and like really, really just look at it for a very, very long time and constantly find something new. That is what I'm aiming towards. So this entire video is going to be me pushing various paints around. And that's all it is. Just my brush touching here and touching there and saying, well, that could be a little more purple and that could be a little more blue. The results is Skeletor. Or skeleton kind of hero back in the 80s, fighting a man known as he with a hyphen. Or a certain former of the trans. That's Tronny of the Gal. I don't want to mess up with any copyright stuff, But I'm sure you could piece it together. I hope you could piece it together. But definitely two very famous cartoons in the 80s and 90s that I used to watch. And for some reason, these colors, a light blue and a purple, have been following me. I go out to town with family. I went to church, actually. And the lighting that they used was that blue and that purple. And then I have exfoliating scrubby sponges for the shower. And my wife's is purple and mine is light blue, because that's just the way it rotated. So this seems to be a theme that's been coming up again and again. So I decided to go for that cold theme. The first thing I do is go for a lot of blues and purples. I've been working with a lot of blues and purples for a while now, actually, and greens as well. I've been working with a lot of cold colors. I think I'm going to change it up for next time and do something I'm not comfortable again with, and try some earth tones and work with the oranges and warmer colors and browns and stuff like that and see where the fall colors lead me. Again, working with something that you're not comfortable with, meaning that you're not going to fall into a plateau. You may mess everything up. You can be okay with that and try something new. And it's the only way you're going to really and truly improve, especially dramatically. Change things up, which is sort of what I did here. Now, I've never painted a Bones miniature before, so here it is. I have to say something, though. I've primed my Bones miniature, and they recommend you don't prime the miniature, but again, I'm a little hesitant about certain things. So I primed the miniatures. Now, this one came out just fine, and I used a rattle can, a Rust-Oleum rattle can. Now, using the same rattle can, I used it with a gray, or different colors, and I'll tell you this. Yeah, watch out, because some of these, not all, for some reason, not all, but some of the miniatures that I painted remain tacky and never feel truly cured. And that is an issue, because then I had to dunk it into simple green to take it off, and I left it in there for a couple of weeks, and then, with a toothbrush I went to town, and it never really came off the way it should come off, and it was still nasty. And then I went to the airbrush primer and Stynylrez I used, and it came out fine and perfect. So I recommend that if you are going to prime Reaper Bones, in my experience per se, that you do it with the airbrush primer and maybe not so much the rattle can. However, now that didn't happen on all the miniatures. The particularly bendy miniatures did happen on. So it wasn't all, it wasn't consistent. Which means if you have a very large piece, I know I did a graveyard set out of the Kickstarter, the additional Kickstarter, bonus Kickstarter from Reaper, the Graveyard expansion. There you go. I had to take a look at it. Sorry about that. Here I am with an ink, violet. And I'm just pushing paint around with this. But yeah, I had a big building within that set for the Graveyard extension. And um, it was a huge building, and I couldn't see using all my style res up for that building when I have rattle cans. That'll definitely take, a brunt of the paint, and it's much cheaper to do it via rattle can than it would be for the Stynal res. So, sure, go for the rattle can. Plus, I have a lot of rattle cans running around, and I kind of want to use them up as primer. So, I went for it. And I mean, it worked out fine with the building, and it worked out fine with a lot of different pieces and archways and things like that. And it worked out fine with a lot of tombstones that I did, and it worked out fine with a lot of grave starkers it did. But with the Dust King, he actually came with another piece, and that other piece didn't work out fine for. And then there was this sarcophagus that it did not work out fine for. And anything that's ultra bendy, it did not work. Well, I had a coffin that it did not work well for as well. So out of all the pieces, it was just a select few that remained tacky and uncured. And yeah, it was a pain to remove off, but the time and money that I spent saved actually from spraying all the other miniatures and priming them up because I wanted to. It was just, it was worth it. So, your mileage may vary. You may want to do things, you may not want to do things. So, I'm just showing you what I did and if it worked or it didn't work for me personally. Alrighty, I did the chest plate, I did the robes, and I'm trying to use different kind of purples. I think I took 4 different purples and blues, 4 different blues, and I kind of worked it on my palette. You see them all there on my wet palette. And if you don't have a wet palette, I highly recommend you get a wet palette, and it's super easy to do. I actually made that one, and all I did was I put in some paper towel in a Tupperware, and I put some baking parchment, which is not wax paper. This is breathable. I put some parchment in there, and then I just put my paint on top, and it keeps the paint moist for a very long period of time. Why would you need that? Well, if you put paint on any kind of surface that's not something very moist, it starts to dry. Well, what might be the problem with it drying? Well, because the consistency of the paint is going to be changing as you paint. So you could be painting all fine and it gets a little thicker because of the air, it's starting to dry, and then before you know it, you have these nasty brush lines onto your models because now it's getting really thick. You can keep adding water to it, but every time you add water to it, the consistency of it changes. So it might be lighter, and then it might be thicker, then it might be lighter, or be lighter, and then it'll start getting thicker again. And you never have a consistency. And that translates onto the miniature. You see it a little darker in areas and lighter in areas. Now, if you want to use that to your advantage, if you are an artist that is as skilled as all get out and know that you want certain areas to be a little more opaque, that means less translucent than others, and you know that if you time the paint drying, it'll be thicker towards the end. So you go from the lighter bits with the translucent area and end up in the darker bits when it starts to dry. Then you are an amazing painter, and I cannot touch you when it comes to painting because that is a skill conceptually. It hurts my mind as I think about it. So I can only imagine what it would be like if, through fruition. Only imagine. And I can only imagine. So, let's get back to this miniature. So, I'm having a lot of light purples on the top, and all I'm doing is just washing the top. I did a little bit of blue, and I incorporated it onto the chest piece because I kind of wanted a little variance there. And then, I was going for an Arthas kind of look, at first, and then I went for a light purple. In fact, purple is my favorite color, so I really do like purple. So a lot of the items that I do paint do include purple to some magnitude. So I'm going to try to get away from that and do something else from blue and purple. Because my wife actually told me that. She was like, well, everything you got is kind of blue and purple. And I was like, you know what? You make so much sense. I'd be so lost without my wife. I love my wife so much. Oh my gosh. I am so lucky, and every guy will tell you the luckiest person in the world. Well, I hope every guy will tell you that, because guys, if you're married, love your wife. Ladies, if you're married, love your husbands. You know. All right, so yeah, I'd be so lost without her. I don't think I do. If anything happened to her, I probably won't post for a while, and my YouTube channel will go to, for a while. Anyway, unless I pray really hard, I get the okay after I grieve for about a year. FYI, so if you don't see me for some reason, something horrible probably happened. But if nothing horrible, truly horrible, earth-shattering, life-changing happened to me, I will be on every single Wednesday, as much as humanly possible. I am a person of my word. I do pride myself on that. So if I say I'm going to do something, I'm just going to do it. So every Wednesday, as far as I possibly can, I will post, or something will post, even if it's going to be an update or something like that, because it relatively takes me longer to paint like a miniature, especially when I'm learning something new on a miniature and I'm afraid to do it, and it just takes me a month per miniature. And as you can tell, if I'm posting weekly videos and a miniature takes me a month to paint, then I'm not gonna have too many tutorials going on, maybe once a month. Yeah, not maybe, definitely once a month. So, yeah. But, when it comes to sketch style painting, now I can get this done relatively quickly. I think it took, 4 days. 4 days to get this done, and that wasn't 4 days completely immersed into painting. That was 4 days. I have a couple of hours here and there. I'm gonna paint 2-3 hours here, 2-3 hours there, 2-3 hours here, and 2-3 hours there. Done. Okay, and that for me is actually most of this is live time. And the only thing I guess I do now off camera is I have a little dryer, and I dry the paint when it gets a little too wet, so this way I can put another layer on. This is actually a very fun model to build. I really like the detail in this. Now, a lot of people say that Reaper Bones, you lose a lot of detail in Reaper Bones, but maybe that was the Kickstarter one, because this one is pretty decent. I'm very happy with the level of detail in it. Like, I'd really want to fight this in a in a campaign where this is a Lich type king, and I could really see myself like putting this on the table, and the color really came out very, very well. I played a little bit with a light sky blue now. I wanted to make the sword a little frosty, so I'm just putting a little bit on. Actually, I put on a little bit too much on here, and then I'm just throwing the paint around. Now look, even in a mistake like this, which you can say is a mistake, I'm just globbing paint on, right? I'm just pushing it up the length of the shaft and let gravity pull it down a little bit and keep going from one end to the other. And as it's drying, I'm pushing it around to where I want it to until it's done. And basically, like I said, this entire video is pushing paint around. It's basically just tinting things and putting layers of paint on until I build up the color, having that translucency, and making sure that you see all the shadows that I put with the Zenithal highlighting. So, it just makes sense to have very, very thin coats and just push the paint around, even if you have too much on. And you control where the paint goes. In fact, where you lift up the brush at the end of your stroke is where the most paint deposits. Now, with that information, you know that it's going to be more opaque wherever you leave your end stroke. So look at where you want it to be the most opaque, the color that you want. And where it fades away, you want to take the paint and draw it away from that area and wick it away from the area and end up to where you want it the darkest. And you just keep doing that motion until You get it to where you want it, and you see it, and you're like, well, this is pretty decent. There you go. So that's pretty cool. I do want to talk about something that I was watching Uncle Adam, and if you haven't seen the channel, it's called Tabletop Minions, and pretty cool channel. A little more philosophical than anything else, and that's really cool. And he has a really great design, and he has a great setup, and I love his audio and his video, and you know, he's on a journey process getting better as well. Videography is a hobby of his, just like as mine. And for a lot of examples, he inspired me to, want to get a channel and put it together because I saw his format and say, well, I could do something like that. Mine will be more based on like little tutorials and stuff like that. Him, Engineer Jeff, several people inspired me. But getting back to what he said now, he had mentioned in a video that, how to use your procrastination. And I kind of want to touch upon that right here. And you may think that, procrastination is, just holding off on one project. And well, he said that, jump from one project to another if you're feeling, if you want to procrastinate on one project, you got to get this one miniature done. Well, and you're not feeling it, jump onto another miniature. So this way you're getting stuff done. It makes a lot of sense. However, for me, what that translates into is, palette cleansing and getting into the palette cleanser. This miniature right here, for me, is a palette cleanser. And what that means is I need to do a lot of Space Wolves. In fact, I have a box, a Battle Force box that I had bought 2 Christmases ago. And I need to get that done. That's definitely getting done. If I ever want a battle box or something like that, then it just needs to get done. So what I did was I tried to attack the one unit that had the most miniatures, 15, and that's the Blood Claws. So I have a lot of videos on Blood Claws that you can check out as well. And that's in the Let's Paint series, and I'll be in the end of the annotation. Well, it should be at the end of the annotation video here. I usually put up the Blood Claws video. This seems to be a very popular one. So I did those up, and I learned a lot of things up, and I did a lot of videos with, learning glowing weapons and other things like that. But I finished that one unit for the box. That's not the entire box set. I have the entire box set that I need to finish, and that I look at that whole box as being a project for me. I am one of those people who like to finish something before they start something else, and I guess that's very left brain to me. I don't know, right brain. I don't even know. It's very logical OCD of me that I want to finish something that I started, and I tend to finish things that I start. So I am technically procrastinating when it comes to building this miniature right here. So I am doing the productive procrastination in which he mentions in his video. But what I do is I'll do a unit of models, and when I finish the unit of models, then I move on to other things. I usually build a building, which I did in my Clockwork Tower. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link up here now. And that was just building something because I'm trying to build terrain for my Warmer Hordes and possibly a D&D campaign to put on my game table, which I am currently building. So that's coming along. And I do have 2 game mats from Table War to put up on there, and I'm really excited about that. But I want to have the terrain to match it, so I'm building a village. So far, the village, I only have 2 houses, so I have quite a few houses to go. Will serve as terrain. And so that is doing something completely different than Space Wolves and miniatures in general. So I usually take a real step back from that to be able to do that. Also, I then build a model car, like scale modeling. So I built a model car. Again, a complete departure from a complete departure from painting miniatures, and I usually do that. I usually take a complete departure from painting miniatures when I finish a unit. And now I have plenty of Reaper bones. I think part of my process is that I'll build a house, I'll build a car, and then I'll start painting like a handful or painting a bunch of Reaper Bones miniatures to try some new things out. And I'll go back to painting either Space Wolves. I do have a Death Army that I want to get to. I started that as well. I actually finished one of those boxes. I'm really, really proud of that box. I finished the Malignants, and I'm very happy that I finished the starter box. It took 2 years to do, but finally. That being said, I finished this Battle Force box for the Space Wolves, and once I finish that box, I don't know if I'm going to paint Space Wolves for a bit. I think I may want to go into some more Mahorts. I do have Engineer Jeff's, and I say his because I won a competition on his YouTube channel. I think he was just cleaning the area and cleaning out his basement, and he had all these models, and I don't know if he's going to play Hordes anymore. Well, I don't know if he's going to play the Scorn faction, because he put that on a video. It was a contest, and I won it, and I have the starter box. I play Trollbloods, but I do want to paint the Scorn up, all because red is a tricky color to paint. So I'm going to paint the miniatures because I'm intimidated by painting red. So that'll help, break that. So it's like, hey, if something is intimidating you, attack it. And if you attack it, then, it's less intimidating until you master it, and then you wonder why you were intimidated to begin with. At least that's how I work. Alright, so time for some edge highlighting here, getting back to the miniature. Again, I was just pushing paint around, and now I'm doing some edge highlighting. And edge highlighting is when you use the side of the brush instead of the tip of the brush. And I put a little flowway down there, and I'll just draw some lines outlining different areas. Now, I do have a edge highlighting video. It's quite old, and the audio is terrible. But I'll try to look at the cards up here now. And if it didn't link, it's because I ran out of cards that I could possibly put up, which I never done before, so I wonder if that's a thing. Possibly. I hope I didn't. So I do the edge highlighting here, and I do it for every purple area. I have that light blue as the highlight. I like the way that contrasts. So that's what I pretty much do. I do it on the skull, I do it on the edge of the shoulder pads, and I try to do it anywhere that I see a hard edge that's purple or bluish. I try to hit with that sky blue. I also try to get, part of the lower parts of these, where the shoulder pad with the skull, I try to do that as well. Only because I figured since light's hitting it on the top, the bottom of the eyelid would catch more light, so that would be the highest highlighted area. So I haven't done a light study officially, but I guess I'm studying light and how it works, so I guess that is a light study. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm sorry for any blurriness that occurs because I got too close, but I just kind of want to show you what I did here, and I'm going to move it back into focus soon, so that's not too terrible. So, as far as the base is concerned, the way I did the base, you see the little rocky crags. I want to kind of leave it basic. Usually I put a lot of stuff on the base, but this one I wanted to leave it basic because I wanted to see like the kind of ice kind of power coming from or generating from his footsteps or from his presence. So a lot of that is going to be that same sky blue that I'm using for the highlight. I'm actually going to put it on the bottom and have that icy kind of texture. But I'm going to water it down, so it's going to be a little translucent, look foggy, and I'm going to let some of the Zenithal highlighting to poke on through. And as far as the peaks, what I did was I took modeling putty, and I used the dentist tool, and I slopped it on just a little bit, and then I pulled it straight up, and that caused it to just suck straight up into a point. It's sort of like if you have long hair and you put like mousse, and then you kind of like spike your hair straight up. Basically the same kind of concept, but with modeling paste on a miniature, on a base, which is very not related, but still. Um, I hope you get the concept. And something I never done before was paint a miniature that I've already based. I usually do sub-assemblies, and with this or Reaper Bones, I generally don't do sub-assemblies. This Reaper Bones is, for me, speed paints. And I want to get better at painting faster, so that's the entire point of creating these or using Reaper Bones miniatures. Again, they're made out of this plastic, this white plastic, that I think is made out of recycled stuff. And it was really inexpensive to make, therefore it's really inexpensive to buy, which makes sense. Which makes sense for me, and I really do like them. So there's going to be a couple of Reaper Bones miniatures before I get back into the Games Workshop stuff, which is back to the Space Wolves, because I kind of want to throw some variants too. If all I did was Space Wolves on this channel, it would get kind of boring for me. So, all right, moving on through. Let's see. Yep, just reinforcing the highlights with the sky blue. Again, playing with that color, diluting it, and pushing paint around. So we're back to pushing paint around, trying to make it a frosty sword, and just trying to have some fun with it. And a lot of this was switching colors, going back and forth, and just pushing paint around to see where I liked it. I didn't go too crazy with anything, And it was really, really easy to do that. Very relaxing, if you can imagine. Super relaxing to do. So, there are a couple of things that, speaking of economy and stuff like that, there are a couple of things you have to watch out for. I mean, I do anyway, because, this stuff is, or buying miniatures can be really, really addicting. And I want to talk about that because a lot of people don't, they joke around that, buying the plastic crack. That's what they say. I don't know if that's a good term to say, but, the plastic whatever vice you want to throw in there. I would say Reese's cups. They're really good. so is Butterfingers and candy bars in general, which I have to stay away from because my family, but diabetes run in my family. But still, it's something not good for you, and you run to it. But, I don't know if miniatures is not good for you per se, but definitely there's an addictive quality to it because there's always a new thing. And a lot of these companies constantly pump out new, exciting things. You know why? Because they want to make money. It's just the way they do. Then they inflate the prices to astronomical levels, and people pay it anyway because it's addicting. It's addicting. It is, because it's cool, and I want to get this, and I can do this with this, and it's inspiring, and you buy it, and then it sits in a box, and you don't touch it, and that's ridiculous because you don't have time to paint, because you want to paint to a ridiculously high standard quality and show quality painting and spending 1 month per miniature. But when you have 3,000 miniatures per se, and you're spending 1 month per miniature, you're going to run out of life before you finish painting. And what's the point of that? Especially if you don't know anybody who will take your miniatures, and then what kind of legacy do you really leave? Food for thought, right? But also, anyway, I want to talk a little bit about, that addiction. I wanted to talk a little bit about, the new stuff that's coming out, and, welcoming you to the machine that's a money generator, because that's what it is. It's a money generator, and it's a well-oiled machine to get you to buy new stuff and spend a lot of money on it, because companies' bottom line is to make money. So coming up with a product that everybody buys, it's is core purpose, or is it's at its core. So Games Workshop has been putting out some really awesome quality stuff. Um, but, for an example, though, as far as prices are concerned, the Citadel of the Ever Chosen. Okay, let's just take that for an example. And if you haven't seen that, you can go look at Games Workshop website and check it out. Citadel of the Ever Chosen. And this is just my example. So what you get is a bit of a fortress, okay, a plastic fortress, and it contains 8 towers and 2 gates and 11 substructure towers, and then a whole bunch of gangways. Let me see, 3, 6, 7, 8 gangways, 4 connector pieces, and 2 stairways. Okay, so I mean that's a decent amount of stuff there. Well, I see 4 stairways. I'm sorry, and that's a decent amount of stuff. It is. But that in itself is $660 US. I'll say it again, it's $660 for plastic. Now, does it look hecka cool? Yeah, it does. It really does. Could I possibly afford that or justify that purchase? Absolutely not. That's some level of insanity that I have not reached. Now, some other people might have reached that level of insanity, but not this guy. Nope. Not I. And, there's that. However, the Runes of Elixia looks really nice. I'm not even going to price that. But you see, this is it. You look at something and you say, oh my gosh, that is way, way too expensive. Then you look at something else and say, well, that's not as expensive. And before you know it, yep, it comes home with you somehow. So you got to watch out for that stuff, Speaking of new stuff, Shadespire. I did a video about Shadespire, and I think I did it, quite a few months ago. And I have to be honest, it was, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty new. It's totally different on game boards and mats, and it's a quick game, and it's a small units, and I do like the small units. Lee, I like skeletons and vampires, so the Spectral Guard looks really way up my alley, and it looks like something you could play on like a little tabletop. And it could be quick and competitive, and it's a little skirmish, and I kind of like it. I kind of like it, but I don't know. I do not know. They have card sleeves and Shadespire stuff. They have army sets, which is really cool. Sorry, I'm just taking a look through the Games Workshop website just for a second there. You see what I'm saying? And that is what I'm saying. It's addicting. You see something new, you want to keep looking, you get enticed, before you know you get obsessed. And you have to be careful of that. You need to be careful of that. I need to be careful of that. But there is a remedy to this madness. Yes, there is a solution, a makeshift solution for you guys. It's not all dread and hopelessness. Guys, if you've fallen addicted to the cool plastic models, or ladies, all you need to do is first take care of your responsibilities in your house. You have those responsibilities for a reason. Take care of those first. Then I take a little envelope. Yes, that's right, a little envelope. Maybe not so little, maybe a long envelope. Right? And then I write on the envelope, hobby, or miniatures specifically. Now what I do is, every time I get paid, and after I paid all my bills, and after I put a little bit of money into savings, I'll take a little portion and cash it out, put it in that envelope, and let it sit somewhere in a drawer, filed away, wherever it is. Maybe visible, as a goal, as a reminder, and you put a little bit at a time. Whatever you can spare, and that is it. Don't look at a website or look at a miniature and say, I'm going to put in that amount of money into my wallet so I can buy it right now. No. Don't look at anything. Take care of your responsibilities. See if you have any left over. And at which point, if you do have some left over, some money from your paycheck, you throw it in the envelope for, happy time or hobby time or, whatever it is. And if you have one for miniatures and one for hobby, then, put a little bit in both. And there you go. And you just keep doing that. And keep doing that. And keep doing that. And keep doing that. Until you have an obscene amount in those things. And you go and you take a look at the websites. And you say to yourself, well, now that the websites are up, then I am going to buy what I want. Usually around Christmas time is a good time because they do a lot of great bundles. And there's a lot of great deals out there. So you may want to take a look at that. So there is hope to this addiction. Yes, there is. There is hope to the addiction. And you too can save. You too can save. You too can actually have what it is that you want. Fantastic. So, it's really important. It's super important, actually. It's super important that you not overspend in this hobby, and that you can only spend the money that you could possibly spend in this hobby. So you reserve the right to just spend this much, whatever that amount is, whatever outlining thing that is. You just spend that on your hobby, and that's it. Nothing else. And if you can do that, then you'll be okay. You'll be okay. I have faith in you guys. You can do this. So, what we have here is a plastic addiction, I guess. I guess there are worse things to be addicted by, but these things look cool, in my opinion. And I really love painting them because I really like bringing life to these things. I figure they're just blah until until I look at them and say, amazing. Although I look at my work and I see a lot of mistakes, but that's okay. That's another thing. Be okay with that stuff. It's okay. Have fun. The whole point of the hobby is to have fun. Not to beat yourself up. This is not the masochistic society of miniature painting. No. Masochistic society of miniature painting. Man. No. Messim. Okay, so, no, this is the fun part, have fun with it. Don't beat yourself up. It'll be okay. So now I'm just adding some color to I neglected this hammer. Warhammer, I guess? Is that a Warhammer? I don't know, he had a Morning Star on there before, so I didn't like it at all. So Warhammer and sword. This dude might be beast on my game table, like, I can only imagine. He's all attack. Not that he needs to defend himself, he's dead. So, he'll come back. Unless you completely obliterate him, at which point, if he had a shield, it wouldn't matter. So, that's all attack. Dual wielding. Big time. So, plastic addiction is definitely a thing. I'm really happy. Ooh, boy. So I'm really happy that they brought back some armies this year, though, for Christmas, because I've been saving for Christmas and thinking about getting said army. I think it would be awesome to do so. And, Wow, that's interesting. They actually came out with a whole bunch of army sets for the holiday season. So they have Slave of Darkness army, and they have a Sylvaneth army, which is okay. It's definitely not the battle box that was years of yore. It's not very. I mean, it's okay. Yeah, no, it's definitely not what it used to be. Not for the Sylvaneth. The battle box was a lot better than that. But the Seraphon army seems to be wholly abundant and have a lot to it, and that looks enticing. So there's the host of Slanesh, but I really can't get with the lobster claws. Plus they have two of the same miniature, and I'm not into that. You know, the Skaven army does not seem too plentiful, but you get what you pay for. I don't think it's. I really don't think that's a deal at all, actually, because I guess it's I don't know. Just if you bought them separately, it'd be about the same. They have an Iron Jaws army, which is interesting. Blades of Corn army, which I'm not too interested in. But they do have a lot of more options for the holiday season. They have a Fire Slayers army, Greenskins army, which looks pretty abundant actually. But I think they too have replicated miniatures. They have Sepulchral Guard collection for Shadespire, and quite a few things for the holiday season. So, if you're into Warhammer, I guess it's a good time to check out their website because they do have a lot of armies and a lot of things to offer. I would have been a lot happier if they had the Quadron Overlord army. That would be cool. But Fire Slayers are okay. Again, I'm not into painting the same miniature over and over and over again. I kind of like changing it up quite a bit, because then I get kind of bored. I don't want to be bored. I want this miniature the hobby to be refreshing and new at all times. Well, not maybe at all times, but definitely I want it to be refreshing and new. And I don't know. I don't know if this year I'll get miniatures. I might just get paint too. And that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Miniatures isn't the only thing in this hobby. There's quite a few things. And one of the things I like to do is look at paint sets as well. And the reason why I like to look at paint sets is because, you get different effects from different paints and different colors. So if you don't have the color, it's really, really difficult. So I am actually looking at, scale 75 stuff, which is kind of difficult for me to get here in the States, really. I mean, there's a U.S. department in which they have scale 75, so there's an interesting thing too. So I don't know if I'm going to get miniatures. I might just stick to paints this year for the holiday season because I'm investing into the channel. Yes, that's right, I am. I have been saving up for 2 years now to get a new camera, and the DSLR. I currently use DSLR, but the DSLR Nikon that I have doesn't have all the features that I may need. Like, well, the ability to put on a decent mic. I mean, the sound only comes from one side. And if you heard any of my older videos and you hear the sound, it's not stereo sound that's coming from one side. And that's because I'm using the speaker from the camera, which is monotone. Getting back to the miniature, something different. Just taking a nice blue, and I am pushing paint around again, but just on the cape, just so I can give it blue, so I can have a blue tone to it, so it can be different. And it should be done right there. I'm going to turn it around, and there it is. Just a light blue kind of thing going on there, and it has a little variation. I was going to do some freehand, but I was intimidated. The next miniature I'm going to do is going to be some freehand. Now for some bone white to get some color into the bone sections of his face and that little skull that's in the middle of his chest plate. So that's what I'm doing with this now. A little bit of that. Again, glazing as I go, just very lightly pushing the paint around with that. But yep, scale 75 has a lot of cool colors, and their fantasy and game collection is pretty awesome, as well as their scale color collection is just outrageous. So definitely something I may want to look at. And I do have a lot of paint. I have a miniature set, a Minotaur set. I have a Vallejo game set, and including with inks and game effects and a whole bunch of a lot of technical paints, and I have model color for the military, basic stuff. Not basic, but more realistic kind of paints. Instead of fantasy, I do have a little starter set of the army painter that I picked up at a fair. I do have FW inks, a set. I have a lot of Tamiya paint. I have some P3 sets. I have some scale color inks intensity set. And Stynylrez for primer. Yeah, I got a lot of paint, So you may think, well, why would you need paint? Well, let me tell you why I need paint. I would need paint because Scale 75 has, as well as war colors, have a different binding medium than the colors that I have, where that binding medium is a gel binding medium, and that means it suspends for a longer time and has a longer dry time as well. So it's really conducive to wet blending. It's really conducive to pushing the paint around, which I'm doing right now with these things. But it really lends a hand to do this without even doing the sketch style painting, but with actually just painting the miniature and putting all the details in. The only one thing I could say about sketch style painting that is not so great is that you have a grainy texture to it. Like, grainy means like you see little spots where one paint ends and the other begins. So the transitions aren't as perfectly smooth as let's say a competition model. But aside from that, it's pretty cool. Anywho, some of the paints that are getting on, there's a new Kickstarter. There's a new Kickstarter for Scale 75 called Naughty Gears. That's all about. So that seems interesting as well. I do like paying very little for and getting a lot. So that's something. Plus, again, getting a camera, DSLR. Let me get back to that. Sorry, I shifted gears there. So getting a new camera is definitely something that it will help the channel. It'll be a stereo camera. I'm getting a Canon, the Rebel EOS T7i, which is a phenomenal camera. And I can't wait, because photography is another one of my hobbies. Like, I like the way light bounces off of things. I like the way lines look, and I'll go out of the house and walk out of the house and get some air and take some pictures and really have an eye for different kinds of things. And plus, I like to play with focus angles and lenses, and I like to do some trick photography as well and have fun with that. And it's great to have fun with the family, sit down and play tabletops games, and it's great to have fun with the family going out on a trip or something like that, and traveling and taking pictures and documenting a little bit of your life. If your life was a book, would you read it? That's the question. So it's something you kind of want to take a look at. For me, I wanted to take a look at and do. So I've been saving for this camera, and that's going to be like the major purchase this year. So I did get into Bones Miniature Kickstarter 4, so that's also another main thing that I'm getting. So I might shy away from getting miniatures this year and just get not only just get the paint, but just get paint, or get paint instead, because of the major because of the major thing that actually occurred with the with buying the camera. That's a major thing that's going to upgrade the channel, and it's just going to be better quality altogether. Right now, I'm using a Blue mic to be able to record over and voice over, even and record twice, I guess, all the audio so far, so this way it won't be so monotone on one side kind of thing. Now, there's some older videos that I'm posting currently that still have the monotone style. That's phasing out, so you don't have to worry about that. And I will do a video to say, a channel update when the update occurs, when I actually get the camera and everything else, and I'll share that with you. There's also something else coming up. I have there's going to be a video that I'm going to a show, PAX Unplugged. Actually, it depends when I post this video. I might have already gone to that, because that video is going to get precedence. So wherever I am on the timeline when it comes to posting these videos, I'm going to interrupt that timeline and post the PAX Unplugged experience. I'm going with my friend Billy, and it should be quite the experience to be able to go and experience that, with a friend. Last time my wife went with me, which I love her, God love her. This is not her thing, but she did it to support me, and it was very sweet of her. I don't want to torture her. Although it would be quite the experience for her to experience something other than tabletop. When I went to Nova, which was all just wargaming, and this would be role playing, so as well, and card gaming, and as well as I guess board gaming. So it's going to be a lot of little of everything. And I'm super excited because Drunks and Dragons podcast is going to be there, and I listen to them, and they're funny and hilarious. And I wonder if anybody else is going to be there. I think I don't know if Acquisitions Incorporated is going to be there, although I don't think they'll be available to say hello to. And if they do, I will definitely ask if I could take some pictures. This time I'm going to learn. I think last time when it came to actually taking pictures and putting it in the Nova Open, I kind of put a picture of Vince up there on my video blog, and I kind of didn't ask him. Now I'm starting to feel a little bad about that. I should have asked him. I'm going to text him and see if, in retrospect, was that cool or not cool? And I don't want to be not cool, He actually had me on his channel for Warhammer Weekly, so I don't want to be rude to the man. The man's a genius when it comes to paint jobs and a lot of philosophical things and game production and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, yep. So, pretty cool. Well, hopefully I did the right thing with that. So, so I'm definitely going to ask this time. I'm going to learn my lesson here now in retrospect, thinking about it. I'm going to ask before I start posting stuff, I think that's just the right thing to do. Now, with me, you could post me streaking through the convention if you want to. Hopefully, I don't lose my job or anything like that. I do like helping other people. I do have a passion for that. I really try to, because it just makes me happy that people are getting these aha moments, like, oh, that's how you do it, and that in itself is reward for me. Oh, this is definitely a paint and ramble today, only because, the techniques I'm using here, and I wanted to show you in real time, are exactly the same. It's just pushing the paint around. And that, in its essence, to me, is sketch style painting, where you're just using glazes and washes to push the paint around and getting it to where you want to be. And it's the same process over and 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 over again, just lightly building things up till you get it to the point where you want it. So when it comes to the thought process on how to create this, it's rather simple, and that definitely cuts out on time. And look, already it's starting to look pretty cool. And I'm really happy with it the way it is. So I'm just going to push the paint around. Still have to do the base, which is coming up, so that's that. Actually coming up pretty soon. So, really, I love sharing information, and I love helping people out, and I love bringing people into the hobby, because this thing of taking plastic things that look dull and making it look really cool with shadows and making it look like it's real. And I remember when I was, this is what did it for me. When I was playing Dungeons and Dragons back at Rape and Blood Games in Long Island, uh, when I lived in Brooklyn, and I used to travel to Long Island to this great group of guys and girls, and they were amazing. And I used to be a dungeon master, um, and when I brought out a miniature, like I believe there was a dragon that I actually had, and I went to the bathroom or something like that. My players would literally look through my DM bag and see what kind of nasties I was going to bring up, right? And one time I had a dragon, and what they did was is they took it and they hid it. They're like, "No, no, you're not bringing that out. No, you're not bringing that out." And well, there was a frost giant once, which they hit on me as well, and it was just so much fun to bring a piece or a model up that looked really cool to the point that it was intimidating, not only stats wise, but looking at it, it was intimidating. And what I used for dragons, and you can use it in your campaign, was although it's not perfectly to scale, McFarlane. He used to be an artist for. He may still be. I don't know. I have to look up his work. But he did Spider-Man for Marvel, um, and then he branched out for Image Comics back in the '90s, and he did this title called Spawn, which they had a movie for and everything else, which was super cool. And he made quite a bit of profit on that. But he used to put out these collection of well, I guess toys for Spawn and everything else, which were highly detailed. But he also put out a line of dragons. And let me tell you, those dragons look hecka cool. They really do look great. I don't know if they still sell them, or I mean, I got them on eBay. I really did. And they were reasonably priced, and I bought a ton of them. And they had different dragons for different occasions. And if you do not like painting dragons, that is an alternative. And I have to say that, and I love painting miniatures. All right, so what I'm going to do here is what I did was wash the base, and what I'm going to do is do a little airbrush in there and just put some highlights onto the base, just so it can glow, and put some hot spots or cold spots in certain areas with this miniature. So yeah, McFarlane's dragons were, I mean, they looked so cool. Really, really cool. And for somebody who paints miniatures and loves painting miniatures to actually suggest buying something that's pre-painted, I mean, it has to look really cool, right? So, and it really does. So I don't know if you can get them, the availability of them anymore, but if you are intimidated by, if you need a dragon for game night, and it's like game night this week, and dragons take forever to paint, and buying the dragon and then having it shipped to you and then painting it up, and you don't have the time for that, then definitely this is an alternative for you. But I'd love to paint a dragon. I haven't painted one yet. I will. I started to paint a dragon in the early 2000s, and it was not good. I didn't thin down my paints. I didn't know a lot of techniques, and I didn't know what I was doing, and it was just terrible. And I think it was Kira on a dragon, and now they have a new one of those, but I don't know. It's not on a Kickstarter. I might not get it. I don't know. My local gaming store had it. Maybe I'll pick it up. I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot of I don't knows here. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just doing the base. I'm just taking a black, and I'm taking a thicker brush, and I'm going over. It's the brush that I use just for bases. And you kind of want to frame the miniature, and that black base separates, the outside from the world that you're creating on the inside for this piece. So really important to be able to frame your miniatures. Now, you don't have to frame them black. You can frame them any color you want, but I like black. It's a neutral tone. It kind of just absorbs light as if it's a void, or just just defining a line where the miniature starts and the real world begins, and separating those two universes. So I like to. A lot of people don't paint to do this step. And a lot of people skip this step, and I don't like the way that looks personally. I just think that it just feels incomplete. It doesn't feel like a game. It doesn't feel like a piece anymore. It just feels like, whatever. And especially if you put it down on a table where um, where you have like a wooden floor and you see that blue right there. It just doesn't match well. But now it's just kind of framed, and it can go into any kind of environment, and it's its own miniature in its own right, and it's occupying its own space. It just happens to be wherever you put them on the game table. I went a little over on there in the middle, and what I do is like I tidy that up, and even if you make mistakes, you just put some blue in there and just go to town. So there it is. Um, I really think for first time ever sketching, like really, and sketching in general is really great. I mean, really quite the method to be able to do. And I'm going to do some more like that later down the road. Um, Definitely go to dive into trying to get some of that done. So here I am tidying up the little areas of black that I went over, and I'm anchoring my pinky onto the pill bottle in order to limit my movement or shaky hands to be able to do it. And that's a great way to paint because you want to stabilize your hand because your hand shakes. You breathe and you have a heartbeat, and you're constantly in flux. So just to brace it and doing small brush strokes definitely helps. There's a technique that hopefully it helps you. So yeah, going to those cold colors, really all the time. Can I call it he guy? All right. So this is skeleton dude from the show He Guy. Inadvertently, I did that, but I posted it onto Facebooks and stuff like that, and people had this skeleton memes like you wouldn't believe. And some people say it looks like that in a good way and all that. So I guess if it was that skeleton dude, then I didn't do it on purpose. Again, I did it completely inadvertently, and I think it's just hilarious because I didn't see it all this time painting this, and I didn't see it. And then when I posted it, I was like, "Oh yeah, look at that!" I think I'm doing something unique, but nope, that's been done before. But it came out to a good effect, so I'm not, I'm not begrudging it at all. I think it looked really cool. Hecka cool, in my opinion. So, as long as the results are where you want it to be, that's all that matters. But definitely, I'm going to get away from these colors for a bit, because I've been obsessed with it. But I really wanted to do a cold miniature. I mean, it's a lich anyway, so I wanted it to be fantastical and cold. I mean, I didn't want to do steel. I could have done steel, and really brought that out, but I do have to take TMM, true metallic metals, and work on that as well. And it's different than just putting down a true metallic metal for a base coat and then call it a day. Maybe a wash or something like that. It's more to it. You kind of want to do it like a non-metallic metal style, but and build up some gradients and throw in your shadows. See, that's the thing. I want to control where my shadows are mainly. Now, with sketch style painting, you don't really get to do that. You don't get to do that as much because you're spraying it and the shadows are falling where the areas it's not sprayed, pretty much when you do a highlight, and that's super quick. But at the same time, I wouldn't submit this into a competition, or maybe a local one. Who knows? But definitely not for a national level. No, it just wouldn't happen. Not with some of the really cool things that I've seen people do. So, so now what I'm just doing in the back of the helmet, I'm just trying to get it a little darker. I sort of missed that spot, so I'm just trying to get a little bit darker and getting those pieces in. So there. I mean, it's almost about over. I mean, just about done. Just again, the entire process, and I don't want to apologize, but really, I could have talked about what I was doing within, the context of doing this, but there wasn't really doing much. Not at all. In fact, all I did was take different colors purples and literally just plop them onto the miniatures all diluted and then push them where I wanted to go. That's it. And blues, I did the same exact thing. So, I really didn't do much when it came to painting this miniature. I almost feel guilty. I almost feel guilty that I got this kind of result by doing just about nothing. And most of this is basically, well, a lot of this is just real time. I just, when I stopped painting for a while, went to the restroom or something like that, I stopped the camera and then it transitioned, you know. So, didn't really take too long. There again, 2-3 hours here, 2-3 hours there. That's it, and it was done. I don't even think I took more than 4 hours to do the whole thing, and that's including, that's all hobby time as far as, putting it down, waiting to dry, pick something else up, organize my desk, and, you know, bathroom breaks and all this other stuff included. Yeah. So, and I would definitely be proud to throw this on my table and say, okay, gaming crew, this is what I have for you. I miss my gaming crew in Staten Island, man. I really do. I really do. They're just awesome, awesome, awesome individuals, you know. And I played some games too, but I mainly DM'd. That was my thing. And did painting classes. I did painting classes back then, and back then I don't even think I was that great. Now, I mean, I could bang out a miniature. Compared to then, I've improved a whole lot, you know. And I know a lot of different tools and a lot of different techniques, and since I can't go into the gaming store in Long Island right now, and what I do is just put them on YouTube, and there you go, dream's still alive. Now, what I need to do is either get a podcast and have a gaming group and DM with that, or possibly do it here on YouTube. I don't know if I'll do it on the channel. You could tell me what you think. I'm thinking about doing a D&D campaign, and I'm thinking about either doing a podcast or thinking about doing here on the channel. What do you think I should do if I did a campaign? And if I did do a campaign, I don't know, I guess it'd be tricky. I'd have to have a lot of cameras around. But if I did it on podcast, I can use this blue microphone that I have here, and we can sit around the table and then, maybe do a recap on here and show you my gaming tables or something like that, or do like a show and tell when it comes to gaming tables, and just talk, or maybe take pictures throughout and then just walk you through it here, telling you kind of what happened. And I think that'll be something I would do. It's something I'll take a look at. And if you have any ideas on what you'd like to see, please include it in the comments below. I like to answer my comments. I do read them. And, I do take your suggestions and opinions, because it's so much easier to know what to record if you request it than just off the top of my head. And also, it is good to know if, what I'm doing is, if you like what I'm doing and you want me to continue doing the things that I'm doing, and it kind of guides me as a creator here on YouTube to know what it is that you guys like, aside from all the views and the likes, which is pretty amazing. Here I thought I wouldn't have any followers. If I've had 10 people subscribe to my channel, I was honored. And then I am truly honored to have the people that I have, because again, I don't think I'm anything special. I'm just some dude who likes to paint miniatures and likes to share his hobby with you, and the fact that you like it is so rewarding to me. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I put some Dragon Guard blue, and I just touched it up here and there just to add some color variance to it. And that little wash there, I kind of threw on there just to tone it and to mix it and to blend it. That's the last step, I believe, that I did for this miniature. And once I've done with that, I am done with this miniature. And then now you know that sketch style painting is relatively easy. It's just literally slopping paint onto your models and pushing it around. It can be easier than that. I can see. I don't know. Airbrush is pretty neat when you know how to use it, but that's great for base tones, and then you have to go, all crazy with it. But I'm just like, for a quick paint, for a speed paint, this was pretty amazing and a lot of fun. And really, the pictures are coming soon for this model, and we're just about done. In fact, we are done. Well, thank you for watching and listening to me ramble while I put together this sketch style painting for the first time. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Well, there you have it. My first attempt of sketch style like painting. It was a lot of fun. I'm going to add it to my repertoire of skills as a painter. And, well, here are the results. Well, if you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time on the Miniatures Paintbrush.